today, the metaphysical mystery of sainthood. So be prepared to be mystified.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good, wonderful. Thank you, lovely introduction. And at this time, I want to wish each and every one of you a happy autumn. Beautiful autumn. Imaja and I, we were driving down 64 on our way over here this morning. We were just looking at the beautiful foliage of the trees, and we were just talking, just expressing how much we love this time of year. And because it is October, in a few days we will be inundated with little kitties coming to our door demanding trick or treat. How many of you have grandchildren or small children in which you're going to be dealing with that in a few days? Okay? Or are you one of those, such as ourselves, in which we don't really have anything to do with that, but we're going to have that bowl of candy on hand just so that they come, right? Understood. But you know, throughout history and throughout this time of year, we who are followers of the esoteric happen to have a conundrum with Halloween and All Saints' Day. And as with many things throughout history, nothing is a coincidence. I'd like to take this time, just briefly, very briefly, I'd like to go back to the celebration of Samhain. Samhain, Samhain. It is an ancient Celtic spiritual tradition where people would light bonfires and wear masks and costumes only to ward off evil spirits. Now, this lasted for thousands of years, up until the 8th century AD, when Pope Gregory designated the following day of Samhain. Samhain was put on the date of October 31st. Pope Gregory demanded the following day, November 1st, as a day to honor all of the souls who have ascended into the realm of heaven, and they were regarded as those souls who were virtuous for being with God after their time in their life here on earth. In other words, November 1st, a day to honor all saints. And thus the day came to be known as what? All Saints' Day. Now, over throughout the time of history, All Hallows Eve or Halloween, Bob and I were talking about this just a few minutes ago. It was, dealing with a very Celtic, earthy, a spiritual tradition. Then it becomes over millennium commercialized. The kids are involved, and you have trick-or-treating, jack-o'-lanterns, and all of that. So we, being students of the truth, followers of the esoteric, we seem to have a push and pull in the middle of the autumn season. And such energies, it's very difficult to bring about a state of equilibrium with that. So I would like to address that this morning. And our metaphysical esoteric lives, I have often been asked many times, and I've also wondered, how does the concept of sainthood fit into our perspective, providing that we are not part of a world governing body that beatifies or canonizes saints or souls. Now, I want to make something clear to all of you. We are not putting anything or anyone down. I want to make that clear. Everything that we speak of today will be spoken with respect, but we are unity. And we pride ourselves for our individuality, and we hold very near and dear, close to our heart, the Christ consciousness. So I will speak extensively on the Christ consciousness this morning, and I will then follow that with sainthood from our perspective and our experience. So this morning we will discuss the metaphysical mystery of Sainthood. The metaphysical mystery of Sainthood. Now, in this time in the season of autumn and All Saints' Day, what I really want to do first is touch on the mysteries of the Christ consciousness. Many of us, as we come into unity, I mean, let's face it, many of us have come from other areas, other places of traditional Christianity. We were taught that Yahshua is the Christ and the one and only Christ. Now, we have also been brought up and associated that word Christ with a human being, okay? This was done because it is elementary and effective to take something that is so universally and abstract and refurbish it into human form. What is so universally and abstract? Well, the Christ consciousness. This is done to make it presentable and acceptable to a mass populace. Now, as time went on, the concept of the Christ was speculated upon. And the concept of consciousness was speculated upon. And in that speculation, the metaphysical ideas and concepts arose out of the idea of consciousness and how we can change our consciousness and change our lives. Okay? How one can change consciousness and change lives became a concern for those who were in control. So, what does traditional Christianity did? What they did was they clothed the idea of the Christ consciousness into the personage of Yahshua of Nazareth. So later on, as we understood more about the mind and how the mind affects the body and consciousness, okay, as I said earlier, change your mind, change your body, change your life. Reverend Dr. Leon Paul Masters of the International Metaphysical Ministry, he once coined this phrase, and the phrase was inwardly aware, outwardly successful. I want to repeat that. Inwardly aware, outwardly successful. What he is talking about is if one grasps the Eastern perspectives of spirituality, Eastern mysticism, then one becomes inwardly aware. When one grasps the concept of Western mysticism, Christian Science, unity, science of mind, divine science, then you become outwardly successful. Now, let's look at what being outwardly successful is about. It is a positive effect. It has a positive effect. But that alone does not transform the entirety of our beingness. And believe it or not, when we get too far into being so outwardly successful, we get caught up where? In our head. Not focusing too much with what is in our heart. What we are taught is, in a nutshell, be positive, be one with God. Wonderful, beautiful. But it's not entirely transformational. It is great, but it does not have the full transformational effect. Now, Paul made an incredible statement in the second chapter of the epistle to the Philippians. In verses 5 through 11, he said, "Let the mind be in you as it was in Christ Jesus." I will repeat that again. Let the mind be in you as it was in Christ Jesus. What was he saying? He was saying, you are going to have a mind that is totally aware of the consciousness of the universe. And that mind will experience oneness with the universe itself. I will repeat that again. You are going to have a mind that is totally aware of the consciousness of the universe. And that mind will experience oneness with the universe itself. So when we begin to think of it like this, we concentrate on the idea of consciousness, and so we end up asking, well, where is consciousness? Well, consciousness is all around you. Consciousness is in the pews that you're sitting in. Consciousness is in the clothes that you wear. It's in the fabrics that touch your body. Everything we touch, everything we see is consciousness. Look at the first chapter of John. First chapter of John, verse 3. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. I will repeat that again. This is John, verse 3. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. Now, truth unity encourages us to probe a little bit deeper. It also reminds us, let's go back a couple of verses. Verse 1 of John, truth unity reminds us, do not forget what John said at the very beginning. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So, what is the Word? The Word is creative intelligence. Creative intelligence underlies manifestation. Therefore, the Word or the vehicle or creative intelligence that makes all things manifest. In other words, what is creative intelligence? Creative intelligence is imagination. Imagination, one of our what? 12 powers of man. So, the question comes up with many people is, well, I am living and I'm moving in consciousness. Well, then, who am I? If I'm living and moving in consciousness, then who am I? A few days ago, I was reminded that I have to embrace my humanness and stop trying so hard to be perfect. Yes, I am God. We are all God. We are love, light, power, and presence. We are the extension and the emanation and the manifestation of the divine spirit. Yes, but in our bodies, in our shell, on this plane, we are still having that human experience. All of you here, you are spiritual beings, but because you are having this human experience, we still have to work hard to heighten our awareness. We have to work hard to heighten our awareness to understand everything that is going on around us. So, let us now understand the mysteries of the Christ consciousness. There are three things that I want to touch on in understanding the mysteries of the Christ consciousness that we are all affected by and that we have all experienced. Number one, dreams. Okay? Dreams. We have these at night. When we rest at night, we are approached by dancing beams of light in certain images, and it is often believed that when we lie our heads down to sleep, we are engaging in astral travel. And when part of our spiritual self travels from our body and meets with our ancestors or receives messages involving what we're dealing with here, those dancing beams of light, those shapes, etc., well, what those are, we are the waking dreams of God. We are the images that are flitting about the planet, the stars, the heaven. We are the images flitting around the consciousness of the divine. How do we come to know this? We enter this through our Christ consciousness. Number one is dreams. Number two, darkness. We have to talk about darkness. Darkness was upon the face of the deep, as it was written. And when darkness was upon the face of the deep, there was the universe before anything. There was nothing. There was unmanifested spirit. There was consciousness. And there was nothing to see. And in Genesis, it was written, let there be light. Which brings us to number 3, which is light. Light is Christ, and Christ is light. And from light, all things come forth. If we were sitting in a darkened room and we wanted to create something, well, the very first thing we do is what? We turn on the light. Light is the most important thing of all. The Christ light is the manifestation of the divine. Every sporting event, what is the most duplicated sign that you see in the sporting arena? John 3:16. What's John 3:16? Can anyone tell me? For God so loved the world, he gave his only son. So I say to you the metaphysical interpretation. Divine source energy manifests and sends the Christ light. Divine source energy manifests and sends the Christ light. But then there's something that you have to understand. When darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the universe was there before anything. And because the Christ light occupies the same area as the divine or the universe, the darkness still remains. What we call darkness is still there. And if you don't believe that, then look at the symbol of the Tao, the yin yang. There's a little bit of light in the darkness and a little bit of darkness in the light. That solidifies it. Now, I would like to talk about sainthood. It is now, I think, about 8 years when we went to Paris. And we arrived in Paris. You know, you get there and you travel all that way. When you get there, the first thing you want to do is the next day we got up, we got dressed, and we went to the Louvre. We wanted to go to the Louvre pretty much so that we can come back to America and say that we've been to the Louvre. Okay? We also did not count on 9 miles of walking that day. But we saw some of the greatest art on the planet. And when we came to the area of the Renaissance art that the former director of the National Gallery of Art, J. Carter Brown, called fire and brimstone art, we were taken by how there was so much anger in that art. Okay? You had the beautiful imagery of Yahshua, but shaming and condemning so many people, scowls on their faces of the saints, and so forth. Okay? Beautiful art. But one thing that we did see, that we were just as taken by, that while there was so much of a volatile energy in that fire and brimstone kind of art, we were also came to the realization that the halo, which is above the heads of many of those saintly figures, we realized that that was the artistic expression of the Christ consciousness. Now, all of those great spirits, they were indeed special when they were in earthly human form. They went through great sacrifices to achieve the flawless mastery of spiritual grounding. Well, how is this? Well, this is spiritual practice. But spiritual practice done in the contributions and the giving of many hours daily to connect to their source energy. According to the Spiritual Research Foundation, their objective is to educate the global society on the spiritual dimension. Their study of sainthood relies on the following. And then I quote, this is from the Global Spiritual Foundation. If one were to view the spiritual maturity or spiritual level of a person on a scale of 1 to 100, where God is at 100%, then through spiritual research, using an advanced sixth sense, we have found that the spiritual level of an average person in the world today is at 20%. They continue. Over 80% of the world's population is below 35% of the spiritual level. Now, here's where it becomes interesting. One becomes eligible for the spiritual state of sainthood when one attains a spiritual level of at least 75% or over. And this is irrespective of one's religion, faith, or spiritual practice. So how do these figures become canonized as saints in the formal traditional structure? Well, first, a person's local Catholic bishop investigates their life by gathering information from people who have witnessed the sanctity of their lives and writings, if they have any, and if this person deems worthy of being a saint, then the bishop will submit an application for this being. Next, there is a congregation for the cases of saints. This congregation can choose to accept or reject the application. And if it is accepted, they are not yet called a saint, but they are called a servant of God. Third, the congregation can declare that A, they lived a heroically virtuous life, a confirmation that the person in question pursued holiness throughout their life on earth. And if this declaration is true, then they are titled as venerable. And fourth, to be recognized by the Catholic Church with the notable distinction of someone who is in heaven, a miracle must have taken place through the intercession of that soul. And usually it is in the case of a healing. And finally, a second miracle is needed in order to declare that the soul in question is a saint. The confirmation of the second miracle goes through the same scrutiny as the first. We are all God realized. And the process of beatification is immaterial because we recognize the light. We have to understand that we are made of the light and that we bring the light, and we have to bring it everywhere we go. Every person we come in contact with, every day. Paramahansa Yogananda, the yogi who wrote the groundbreaking book, an autobiography of a yogi. He is often himself regarded as a saint. He once said, and this is from Autobiography of a Yogi, he said, 1,000 Christs sent to earth would not redeem its people unless they themselves become Christ-like by purifying and expanding their individual consciousness to receive therein the second coming of their Christ consciousness. To receive therein the second coming of the Christ consciousness as manifested by Yahshua, contact with this consciousness experienced in the ever-new joy of meditation. This is the real second coming. And it will take place right in the devotee's own consciousness. Ladies and gentlemen, that is sainthood. That is sainthood. Not a long, drawn-out application process to be determined from earthly authorities. No. The connection through the new joy of meditation and in connection with one's own Christ consciousness. That alone is sainthood. Formal canonization is not necessary because we are the extension and the creation of spirit. We are already sainted in the Christ consciousness. And if I may, as Saint Yogananda has said, contact in this joy of the new joy of meditation, expanding your natural, your innate halo. You raise your individual Christ consciousness. Increase your radiation. You are light, the bright shining light. And I will leave you with John 14:12, in which Yahshua said, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, whoever believeth in the consciousness, the works that I do, they can do also. And greater works than these